So, like I said, a couple things I want to hit on. We will talk some NBA playoffs here in a little bit. We will talk Bronny James, LeBron James' son, in the combine in a little bit. But first, we're actually going to give the WNBA and women's basketball, not girls, excuse me, women's basketball, a little bit of love. We've got the NBA, the WNBA season has started. There are a few games. Some teams have played 3 games. Some teams have played 1. Most have played 2. And of course, like the thing that's grabbing everybody's attention is simply the rookies, right? The 3 big names that I've got for you. I think the 3 big names that are playing. Camila Cardoso, I think she got hurt, so she's missing some time. You got Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, and Cameron Brink. Cameron Brink from Stanford, Angel Reese from LSU, and Caitlin Clark obviously from Iowa. And they are all kind of playing at different levels, right? When you're big like Angel and Cameron, in my opinion, I think it's a little bit easier to adjust for bigs in the WNBA. They do tend to fare very well in that transition with a size advantage, and that tends to be useful when trying to learn the speed of the WNBA game versus college and getting adjusted to all of the talent that surrounds you. So I think that when you have an advantage in size, that help like shrink the gap between you not necessarily being ready yet and, so on and so forth. So we'll start with Cameron Brink and her debut. She had 11 points, 2 rebounds, or 2 assists. No, 2 rebounds. 11 points, I think 4 rebounds, 2 assists, and she had 2 blocks as well. In her debut, she's she's 6'4", playing for the Sparks. Angel Reese, 12 points, 8 rebounds, 1 assist, and a steal in her debut. Pretty solid. Caitlin Clark, she was okay. She was pretty solid in her debut. I think she hit 20 points. Her second game obviously was the one where she had like less than double figures. Her averages for the year, because they played the Liberty. So one thing that, like, for context, she played the Liberty twice. Remember, the Liberty they finished runner-up. That team is stacked. Them and the Aces, they're stacked. They're probably going to meet in the championship again this year. Sabrina Ionescu and Brianna Stewart, Jonquil Jones, like, that team is stacked over there. So her struggling when 2 of her 3 games have been against the runner-ups is to be expected, right? You go from playing college and you don't really get an adjustment period. You go straight to the highest like level, right? Like imagine if I don't know, any rookie in the NBA, 2 of their first 3 games, they had to go play the 2015 or the 2016 Warriors in 2 of their first 3 games. Like, yeah, you're going to look at them like, okay, well, maybe they're not playing defense. Yeah, no shit, So same kind of thing there. So I think her averages right now is like 17 points, 4.3 rebounds, and 5.7 assists. She does average 7 turnovers a game right now. Again, she had a 10 turnover game, another 8 turnover game the other day. I think that what we kind of have gotten spoiled. There are certain players, and this is kind of, this is kind of one of the things that, like, there are certain players that spoil us, and that's kind of how you can kind of tell who the greats are. LeBron has spoiled us. Tom Brady has spoiled us in thinking that players can play. Like, we forget that, 39 years old is actually a daunting age, right? Because LeBron's playing at that age, and Brady played till 44, 45, whatever it was. So we now think that that's, like, the norm. So they've spoiled us. We start to lose like track of actual reality. LeBron stepped into the NBA and was elite from the very beginning, right? Coming out of high school. Kind of spoiled us. You watch guys like Andrew Luck step in and immediately have success. Trevor Lawrence was immediately showing flashes and promise that we get spoiled when we don't give a quarterback more than a couple years to develop. We forget how long it took Peyton Manning to finally hit stride. So those greats spoiled us. Maya Moore stepped into Maya Moore stepped in was great as well, but Candace Parker stepped in as a rookie, won Rookie of the Year and MVP. She spoiled us. And we do know, and also forgive me if you hear in the background, we've got some company at the house. Mother-in-law's dog is acts like a nut when mother-in-law is not here. And obviously, when I say mother-in-law, I'm not, there she is again. I'm not married, but it's my girlfriend's mom. It's just the easiest way to say. So anyway, so you might hear Lacey in the background wanting to be a part of the pod. Welcome, Lacey. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, right. So they spoiled us a little bit into thinking like, oh, the women's game translates so easy, Dana Taurasi's, the stuff like that. Like, and it does translate better than the men's does, but we do have to like I think that we might have had a little bit too much dip on our chip. We might have expected, oh, Caitlin Clark's going to come out here and average 25, 8, and 8. And Diana Taurasi said it on her and Sue Bird's broadcast, and they're like, hey, like that stuff's not flying in the WNBA. And we all, a lot of people, I won't say we all, but like it definitely kind of came off as some hate, right? Especially because she said it. They had just beat UConn, or they were en route to beating UConn. She's not happy with the call, all that stuff. So it did come off as a little bit of hate. But that's like the statement itself wasn't necessarily wrong. And what I actually think is good for the WNBA is this kind of, you watch Caitlin Clark dominate at 30 points and however many assists and however many rebounds, getting 30-point triple doubles and stuff like that. You watch that stuff and you're kind of like, oh, and it kind of actually allows people to gain this respect for the WNBA. Like, oh, these women are talented. This girl's not about to just come from college and just cook everybody. Like, and I think that actually is important. So part of me is like, you want to see everybody do well. She is, Caitlin Clark is struggling a bit, but you got to remember, like, she's being handed the keys. The Fever are not a tremendously talented team. They've got talent. They're not a tremendously talented team. There's a reason they had the first pick in the draft the last 2 years. And they're giving her the keys and saying, hey, run, drive this train. And you've got Aaliyah Boston. And they got to figure out how to play together because Aaliyah's dominant, but her touches seem to have dwindled. Now that you have a ball-dominant guard who also is a scorer first. And she might, and some people may not take her as a scorer first. I take her as a scorer first, and I feel like everybody feeds and eats off of it. Some people would consider her Steph. I think I would consider her more of a Luka type of player. And so when you're a Luka, do you pair Luka with guards? I think he had paired with Jalen Brunson. He's paired with Kyrie Irving now. Or do you pair him with bigs like Kristaps Porzingis, Dirk Nowitzki? Like, which one works better? I think that they had the most success when he's paired with guards. Conference championship after beating the Thunder, the conference finals 2 years ago when they had Brunson, and Brunson was huge in that run. So but again, that's just all on the coaching and all on figuring it out. And she's going to have to figure out how to maximize the talent around her in a way that goes beyond like, these girls just stand over here and shoot threes and I can get by everybody, because you can't. And then defensively, I mean, again, when you're playing against more talent, these are the best WNBA coaches, the best women's basketball coaches in the world. They're going to make sure that you're going to have to play some defense, or, hey, you're going to have to, move your feet, get through these ball screens. Like, it's not going to be you get hidden because you can go guard the worst player here. No. We're going to get you in the action, and we're going to make you tired. We're going to make you work hard on defense so that you're too tired to kill us on offense. But again, I think that where this benefits the WNBA is people are seeing, oh, okay, it does have merit, and these women are a lot more talented even than the women's college basketball that we're falling in love with. So I think that this is huge. Caitlin Clark struggling, I do think, actually benefits the WNBA. With that being said, though, I do think that Caitlin has a knack to wear her emotions on her face, to let her emotions out in spurts, right? Throw her hands up, this, that, and the third, kind of get frustrated. And I just think that, like, that is something that when I played basketball, I had a problem with. I still got a problem with it now. Like, you can tell, you can't tell necessarily what I'm thinking, but you can definitely tell, where my head is at, where my demeanor is at, based on my face. So I can definitely understand that aspect. But of course, teams look at that and they're like, oh, there's Lacey again. Teams look at that and they're like, oh, you okay, like you are frustrated right now. We can tell you're frustrated. Let's go ahead and attack you and make the ref call a foul on you, which is going to make you more frustrated, and like let it pile on. Like I think that is something that she's going to learn just as she plays. Like okay, the certain things that frustrated me in college are normal here, so now those things aren't going to frustrate her after a certain time. And I'm excited to see how she progresses. I don't think any of the rookies, they're not shooting very well. That's to be expected, right? You're used to playing at a certain speed. You played in college for 4 years. You're used to playing at a certain speed. And quite frankly, I mean, the women's NCAA tournament was just a few months ago. So it's not like you've had a lot of time to practice and get up to the game speed of the WNBA. And when you're playing in the preseason, it's the preseason. No one's playing at 100% speed. Maybe they're playing at 80% speed. But so your shooting percentage is low. That's going to happen. You're getting used to the physicality. You're getting used to the speed. You're getting used to what calls go, what calls don't go, what new moves you have to make, because there are people who sit there and break this film down specifically to watch you, to stop you. And I just don't think that the women's college basketball teams aren't deep enough to really, to go that way. We talked about the girl from UConn. She got drafted, but she was guarding Caitlin Clark in that Final Four game, and she did a hell of a job. Well, there's girls like her all over the WNBA. So that's the new norm versus most girls can't really stay in front of you. Even if they are good defenders, the Haley Van List, they can still get cooked. So, and this is not the case. So I'm loving what I'm seeing. I love that all these girls are also like leaning into kind of their stardom. WNBA now, the charter flights, all like, and that is something that actually had been brought up prior, but it's definitely something that now they are deciding to actually like take action on, like all these charter flights. They don't have to fly, commercial or whatever it was. Like that's awesome. And I mean, when you're a professional, when you do something professional, if you look at every sport, professionals are treated like professionals, right? The NBA players, the NFL players, the tennis players, the soccer players, like that is like, a lot of people want to say stuff. Oh, well, you get paid lots and lots of money to play a sport, so you should not be complaining over the charter. No, like all the sport, that's natural. And part of that is because their body is their profession. So it has to, you have to pamper it a little bit. You have to like make it to where, okay, it can operate at its best self, because you're kind of pampering it a bit, and you're kind of keeping it from super high stress and super high, and to keep your muscles and joints healthy. So yeah, you need leg room on a flight so that your knees don't hurt, because your body is your profession. So yeah, I don't want to hear none of that from nobody. WNBA, like I said, I think that like beyond just like people watching to see Caitlin Clark be a star, and then seeing oh God, what's her name? Agwumike is her last name. Drop 35. And you're like, oh Jesus, she's cooking, right? Like players that you never even heard of. I think that's huge for the WNBA. Even if Caitlin Clark comes out and she's not the rookie of the year, all you needed was the eyes. Now the eyes who actually liked watching good basketball will realize just how good of basketball the WNBA is. So Caitlin Clark struggling is not a bad thing, right? A lot of people might think that, oh, well, if she doesn't play well, then people are going to like, it's not going to legitimize the WNBA, or they need to stop treating her so rough. And there was a clip on Twitter. She got hit by a screen, and I mean, it was a hard screen by Breanna Stewart, but we see that happen in the NBA all the time, right? If your teammate doesn't call out, there's a screen coming, you don't see it. We've seen players get rocked by screens they didn't see coming at half court. It happens all the time. But yeah, there's tweets of, oh, well, they need to stop treating her like this, because they're going to be like, she's the reason that they got the flights, and she's the reason they're going to get paid more and TV deals and blah, blah, blah. They need to stop trying to be, it's like, no. They're just playing basketball. That's all that it is. And we get to see that. And we also get to see how Caitlin responds to that, because right now she's saying all the right things, right? It's like she don't hate on nobody. She don't care about people talking shit. She don't care about, like, she seems to be saying all the right stuff, which means that she understands it's basketball. But no one's out here picking on her or trying. I mean, they're going to attack her. Don't get it twisted. But that's also the nature of athletics. That's the nature of competitiveness, in the nature of just competition in general, not just competitiveness. So that's going to happen. The key is, how she responds, and the fact that we're going to see a lot of teams. Like, we've seen the New York Liberty play twice on TV, and we're like, oh, yeah, Brianna Stewart's like that. We watched Cameron Brink and the Sparks went up against the Vegas Aces, and then you remember, oh, yeah, we love Caitlin Clark. Yeah, we're all wrapped up in the Caitlin Clark, but A'ja Wilson's still the best player in the world. So that's the kind of stuff that you get to see, and it gets to get exciting. And the girls just play harder. They play harder. They're physical. I love women's basketball, man. I do. I love it. So yeah, rookies are struggling a little bit. We're gonna keep up with them, specifically those three and Cardoso when she gets back right. But that's where they are, man. And it's solid. It's good for the sport. I'm glad that I can just turn on ESPN or ESPN2 or ESPN News, ESPN Plus, whatever, and I have access to it. So that's good. And yeah, hopefully the hopefully the WNBA can continue its momentum that they built off the college game. Then when the college game continues, it's just snowball affected. So shout out to the WNBA, man. I do want to transition to the NBA a little bit because I think that this Bronny James situation, I want to have a true conversation about Bronny James. I'm not necessarily here to tell you whether or not he is going to be a great NBA player or not. That's not really like what I'm here to do. I'm not a scout. I don't know what a great NBA player looks like at 18 years old or 19, 17. I can't tell you that. So that is not what I'm trying to do. I need to adjust my mic here a little bit, so forgive me. But long story short, we've known the story of LeBron James Jr., a.k.a. Bronny James, for a while. Once LeBron James has got a kid, everyone's going to pay attention. And once he got to high school, Sierra Canyon, all this stuff, he's been playing with some really good players. We've heard Gilbert Arenas talk about him and how he doesn't really exude that killer mentality that he has. He just doesn't bring it out, right? It's just kind of, he's very just even kill. And then when it's time, like, oh, I need to go kill, he can go kill, according to Gilbert Arenas. And so now the combine is going on. He went to the combine. He put his name in the transfer portal. I know that the coach at USC either resigned or was fired, but long story short, he won't be the coach. So he put his name in the transfer portal, but also put his name in the draft combine. He has until the 29th, which is a week and some change, to determine whether he's going to stay in the draft or he's going to go back to school. And if he goes back to school, he's in the transfer portal. He can be recruited, blah, 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 all this stuff. And he'll probably be playing for somebody other than USC. So I want to talk about his combine and like just what everything is going on, because I think that the Bronny James situation is interesting. So obviously, as a kid, when you have a dad or a parent who's really good at something and you're kind of following in those footsteps just in the sake of you're really good at it too. And so you're going about it as well. You're going in the same profession, and you have a well-known parent who people revere, respect, and admire. You tend to get compared to them a lot. And just as a kid, as you grow up, you tend to want to grow up and be your own person and not necessarily be always known as such and such a son. When I worked at the YMCA, my dad was a director, and so a lot of times, like, I had to, it was a real thing, trying to be Kevin Calais and not Earl's son, So, like, when people introduce you, I want them to introduce me as Kevin Calais, the sports camp director, because that is what gives merit to my name, not Kevin Calais or Earl's son, And so, like, that's just a natural thing. And so he's talked about that before. He wants to make his own name, and that's why, instead of going by LeBron James Jr., he has kind of, I don't know if it's an official name change or just what his alias, what he just decided to go by, Bronny James, but that's part of that. So a couple things that have come out in the midst of this. A lot of stuff was talked about because LeBron had said way back when, I would love to play with my son. That's my end goal, play with my son. Then no father-son duo has been able to do that. But he has kind of gone back and said, look, I'm not going to just go sign with somebody who drafts him, right? Because that just might not be right. Like if the I don't know, if the Utah Jazz draft Bronny James, I don't really think that LeBron wants to go play for the Utah Jazz, right? Like I don't think that that's a thing. And Bronny's same thing. He's not necessarily looking to play with his dad. He's looking to make his own name. He's looking to see if he can make it in this league, not having to be, oh, I got my dad beside me, right? One of the biggest things I thought was interesting that not a lot of people talked about when they would mention LeBron saying, oh yeah, I want to play with my son is nobody like ever really talked about, what does your son really want to play with you? Because me as son, I don't think that I'd want to. I think that there's value in my dad being on the team, my dad who's been through all this, who's seen all this, who can really help me navigate the way certain things need to be navigated, right? My dad, the way he trains and protects and keeps his body up to shape on a year-round basis, having me on that same regime throughout the season. But I don't think any of that stuff, that the invaluable stuff, is stuff you can't get if he's not on your team, right? So, but then it's like, like that super young Laker team. Remember, it was Lonzo and Kyle Kuzma and Brandon Ingram and Josh Hart. Like when they were all really, really young, like, do you think any of them really like wanted their dad to be around, or do you think they just wanted to be young and enjoying the NBA? And so that's an aspect that not a lot of people really talked about, and might just be because not a lot of people really cared. But that's one of those things where I've always found that to be a bit weird. I'm very curious if there would be teams who are like, oh, we can get LeBron if we get Bronny. So let's go ahead and is Bronny worth the 15th pick in the draft? Maybe not. Is Bronny and LeBron James worth the 15th pick in the draft? Absolutely. Especially if you're a team like, if you're a team on the edge, on the verge of making the playoffs, or you're the 9 seed. I'm trying to, of course, I can't think of the standings off the top of my head. Like Charlotte, if you're picking 5, who picks 5? It's not Charlotte. Detroit. No, Bronny and LeBron might not even be worth the 5th pick. Let me go look and see the standings just real quick so I can make sure that I have somebody. The Brooklyn Nets, right? So if the Brooklyn, who finished 11, if they're like, we can draft Bronny and get Bron, does that put us in the playoffs? It probably does. Because really the LeBron James factor. But with that, LeBron being a free agent, you don't have to trade none of your assets the way you typically have to do with a lot of these guys, unless LeBron's still looking for monies. Chicago, maybe not, just depending on how they feel. Houston, you get LeBron. Well, you got a lot of young guys, and we still finished 41-41. We were nipping at the Warriors' heels for a while. They kind of fell off down the stretch. But Houston, we paid Fred VanVleet, but we need a guy who's also a smaller guy, who can kind of really give Bronny some good advice on what it is like being a smaller guard. And you got LeBron with Jalen Green and Jabari Smith, and I mean, you got Dylan Brooks there, so that's it could be a little bit of issue, but they've got money because they're all so young and they're not paying a lot of their stars. Would a Houston say, oh yeah, our pick would be worth Bronny if that meant you get LeBron too? Maybe. So I'd be curious if that were to happen. I want to get into some of Bronny's like combine numbers. He 40.5-inch vertical. I think that was good for 4th. I want to make sure that I am correct on that. So yeah, 40.5-inch vertical leap, 4th highest among combine participants, with solid marks relative to his peers in the agility drills. So that's good. So when it comes to athleticism, he's got it clearly. He went 19 for 25 in the 3-point shooting drill. It was just 2nd overall. I think that, so people who know the combine, because I'm not super familiar with this drill in and of itself, but people who know the combine speak of that drill like that drill is meant to make you tired. That drill is meant to basically make you get a lot of shots up in a small amount of time. And so to go 19 for 25, which is 76%, that's pretty damn good. Even if you're just standing still like shooting threes, 76% is still really good. But now you're doing it, you're on the run, you're catch and shoot, you're going to different spots. Like the drill is meant to really push you to go 19 for 25. That's pretty impressive. I think that's the part where that's probably where people really started to turn heads. And then, of course, he's 6'1" without shoes. I personally don't think that matters because, one, you don't play in the NBA without shoes. Two, we've seen 6'1" guys be fine. I also think that everyone's expecting him to come in here and be a superstar. And if that's the expectation, if that's the bar, then sure, maybe 6'1" without shoes is going to be really hard to accomplish, especially if you're not an Allen Iverson, Kyrie Irving type, which Bronny is not that from just like a natural skill perspective. So maybe, but like I don't think that 6'1" without shoes, 6'3" maybe with 6'2.5" with whatever it is with shoes, I don't think that like can't play. 6'7" wingspan. Another thing I don't really care about because the reality of it is everybody in the NBA has long arms. Everybody in the NBA has got a long wingspan. So it's not so those are two stats to me that don't really matter. But I don't see why Bronny James can't be a viable option on an NBA backcourt. Is he a starter, all-star? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not, right? I think that development and coaching matters in that regard as well. But like I was never looking at Bronny as, hey, he needs to come in here and be a superstar and be a next team's next. Like, I don't think I never looked at him that way. And I think if people would stop looking at him that way, look at him for the prospect he is, do you maybe look at him a little different? Like, oh, he could play in the NBA. Sure. Would you like him to maybe be 6'4"? Maybe. But like, I don't think that means he can't play or be productive or have a long career. Some people are bringing up the argument of, well, would he actually be getting this much recognition? Would he be getting these calls if he wasn't LeBron James' son? Okay, well, maybe not. But him being LeBron James' son also has value. Like, it does add value to him as a prospect, right? He knows how to move. What you do know is he's not getting in trouble. You know that he's got the best resources around him to succeed. And he's got the one model citizen in the league that don't get it, that literally like you want everybody to be when it comes to off the court. It's his father, right? This is the person that raised him. So I do think that even though, sure, if it was me, because he's 6'1", 210, I'm 6'1", 190 something, right? And if it was me, I wouldn't have gotten a call to the combine because I'm just a regular dude who averaged a few points in college. But the other thing you got to remember, even with the points in college, was he's on a minutes restriction because he had cardiac arrest on a practice court, which is another thing. He still came back, was able to play. So I don't see why he can't be like a productive guard. Selfishly, I was hoping when I saw he would enter the transfer portal, I was excited because I was like, good, get him out of USC, get him to like, I mean, selfishly, I'd love him to go to Carolina, but North Carolina, RJ Davis came back and Elliot Cadeau is still there. So it would have been kind of a loaded backcourt, but get him to like, I don't know, like Michigan State or Tom Izzo, right? Roy Williams is gone. Coach K is gone. Get him to Kansas with Bill Self. You know who had a lot of success in Kansas? Devontae Graham. Smaller guard. Developed. Get him somewhere like that. That would have been. I was hoping that I got to see Bronny get some better coaching in college and play at a bigger program and then play in some big moments to where we could like see some flashes. Selfishly, that's what I was hoping. So I was like, oh, he went in the draft, but hopefully like he doesn't really, but he impressed the combine. So now there's no reason to leave. I do think that if he went back to college for another year, that's just what I want. I don't know what would be best for him. That's just what I would want, just selfishly, because I want to see Bronny play in some big college basketball games as well. That would be exciting. But overall, like I said, I don't see any reason why Bronny can't get drafted. I don't know, first round, second round, wherever, but I don't see why. Like, I don't want to see him get drafted and he's in the G League or the D League or whatever, or just on the end of somebody's bench for however. Like, I want to see him play. I didn't get to see him much in high school. didn't get to see him much in college because he was playing at USC's West Coast, and they didn't have a great season. So that's kind of what I was hoping. Give him a year, an off season where he didn't have cardiac arrest, where he could not be on a minutes restriction, and he could just kind of unleash, but also learn from a great coach. So that was why. But again, I think that truthfully, Bronny can be just fine. We just have to temper expectations. We can't come out here and assume we have a problem of looking at any prospect as the next superstar. And they don't all have to be. And then when you get that superstar, it's great. But like, I don't think that Jokic was looked at as the next superstar, or Jimmy Butler, or even Giannis for that matter, or Kawhi. They were drafted, but like they weren't drafted as like, oh, this is going to be the next. Coaching and development gets you there, right? Do the Spurs? I mean, shoot, the Spurs. I don't know what picks they got. Do they say, hey, we'll draft Bronny and get him with Pop? Devontae Graham way there as well. It's a lot of Devontae Graham similarities. But anyway, that's kind of my take on Bronny. I do want to transition real quick before I get out of here to the playoffs, because since the last recording, a couple things have happened. So the Mavericks did beat the Thunder just last night. Final score 117-116. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander fouled the three-point shooter when they were up 1 point. They reviewed it, confirmed the call. PJ Washington made the first two free throws to go up one, and then he missed the third one on purpose. Not sure if I agree with that strategy, because the Thunder had no timeouts. So I get the point. Like, you want them to just have to scramble. But the way he missed the shot, like he threw the ball and it was just too direct. So it bounced right off the rim, right to Chet, who could pass and get him a decent look at a three-quarter court shot. You want to kind of miss soft so that the ball bounces high. You can make a jump ball. Maybe it gets tipped a couple times. Like, you don't want to, like, you want to shoot it high and miss it soft. You don't want to miss it so hard where it ricochets. And it was, I mean, like I said, they were able to get it. They didn't make it. It's still a very low percentage shot. I just don't think that they executed their plan well. But nevertheless, they're on to the conference finals, second conference finals in 3 years. Luka and Kyrie, it looks like it's working, man. It looks like it's working. They gave Kyrie the extension. He's not missing games for any, stupid reasons or nothing like that. He's just hooping, and he's hooping. And I know that there was a lot of talk about him starting off games slow and then getting his shots in the second half, et cetera, et cetera. I really think that he kind of is just like, all right, let's gauge it. Let's feel it out. Let's let Luka get in some rhythm. Because at the end of the day, him getting in rhythm, he was 9 for 15 last night, 29 points, 4 for 6 from three. He was in rhythm, but he only took 15 shots. And he had 10 assists and 10 rebounds. So Kyrie is like, all right, when the game gets tighter, we need somebody who can kind of like make a play, do something magical. That's where I step in. So Mavericks will play the winner of the Wolves and Nuggets game 7 in Denver. I will be doing a kind of like because I'm not really hitting much of the playoffs in this episode. So I will be doing an instant reaction after the Nuggets Wolves game. Instant reaction on both the Pacers-Knicks game 7 today. That's going to go here shortly. And then the Nuggets-Wolves, I'll make a little prediction here at the end of this episode. I don't know what the hell is going on with that Nuggets and Wolves series. There's only been like one good game. That was game 1. Every other game was pretty much one of the teams was in control the entire time. I do think that when it comes to game 7s, like if you're going to bet the under on whatever the total is, bet the under. When it's game 7s, you always bet the under. And I mean, I'm inclined to go Nuggets. Not gonna bet on them. But I don't know. I don't know. I have no clue who's gonna show. I kind of thought like the Nuggets had figured it out, and they had won 3 straight, dominated 3 straight, and whatever they were doing was clearly working. But and then they got out like 9-2 on them on game 6, and I was like, oh, okay. But the Timberwolves they're wolves, man, and then they come, and then once they realize that they smell blood and they draw blood, they don't stop. They're relentless. So obviously a hot start is important for both of them. We'll be interested to see what Cat we get, what Gobert we get, and we'll interested to see what Jokic we get. Jokic turns the ball over, they lose. Jamal Murray seems to be hobbled. When he's hobbled, he's not as good, and when he's not as good, they lose. We'll see what Jamal Murray we get. It should be exciting. I think I'm going to pick Nuggets to pull it out. That's that like championship kind of stuff. It's just almost giving them the benefit of the doubt because they're the champs. So I'll pick Nuggets, but we'll go over the game in the instant reaction video that I'll also drop. And then secondly, Knicks and Pacers. Another one that I was like, that one's a little bit different. It's a little bit easier to predict. I think that the Knicks with the injuries, I mean, it's getting bad. And of course, like what really sucks for both of these teams is you go through a 7-game war and then your reward is Boston. I do think if the Knicks don't make the conference finals and they didn't have to play the Bucks, that's going to feel like a little bit of a disappointment. But when you look at how hard that team plays, which is why the city loves them so much, and all the injuries they've gone through, and for them to still get to where they've gotten to, I don't think that they can truly like hang their heads if they don't end up getting to the conference finals, personally. I think the Pacers are ahead of schedule if they get there, so they got to be elated. But I don't see any of these teams beating Boston. Boston made quick work of the Cavs with no Porzingis. I don't know when he's going to be back, if he's going to be back for that next series either. I don't think that they need Porzingis for the next series as well. I do think they would need him to win the finals, but that's neither here nor there. If I had to choose, I do expect a big game. I do expect a big game from Brunson, of course. I do expect the Knicks to pull it out at home behind that Madison Square Garden Magic. But the thing about Madison Square Garden and that Madison Square Garden Magic is a lot of times the road teams, man, their superstars love it. Trae Young loved being the villain in there. You know, Kobe and Bron, and you know they loved playing in Madison Square Garden. Paul Pierce was talking about how he used to love Madison Square Garden. Road superstars love it as well. I think Reggie Miller used to love Madison Square Garden. So, you know, road superstars love it as well. I just don't know if the Pacers really have that superstar, right? Like, Tyrese Halliburton is good, but I don't think that he's that just yet. I think he could be, but not yet. This is one of those game sevens where it's like, if this was Bron on the Pacers playing this next game 7, we would have seen something insane. Or Kobe, we'd have seen something insane. Carmelo, when he was with the Knicks, we would have seen something insane. From that level of stars I'm talking about, Dwayne Wade, we would have seen something insane if they were playing Game 7 in New York. So I'm gonna go Knicks. So I'm going Knicks and Nuggets to win at home for these Game 7s.